Nigerians who are stuck in Ukraine, and some of them that have taken refuge in other countries are being discriminated upon, and they are not allowed into some of those neighboring countries for for shelter and security, refuge, and all of that. And then they termed it as an act of racism. Now, I'd like to correct that impression. Hi guys, welcome to a new video. Welcome to our channel. All right, it's your girl Udoka Abiokoro, aka Udala Talks, an international relations devotee. And on today's video, we will be discussing some of the misconceptions of the Russian Ukrainian crisis. All right, I mentioned that in our last video that we'll be talking about some of the misconceptions of the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and here we are. Ta-da! All right, guys, we'll just be taking two because of time, and we don't want to make this video so long. All right, and so the first misconception would be the popular notion that Russia is interfering with the democracy or the independence of Ukraine. And maybe that's what you think, and maybe that's correct too. But I'd like to say something real quick. It's natural for Russia to want to interfere in Ukrainian affairs once in a while. Yeah, it's natural. You know why? Because considering their relationship over the years, considering their history together, and considering the geographic location. I mean, these guys share borders, all right. And from Kiev to Moscow, it's more like a 3 hours, journey. That's if you go by train. That is to show you how very closely connected these two places are, and it's almost like what happens in Ukraine has a way of affecting Russia. I mean, Ukraine's action directly or indirectly could have an impact on Russia because they share, they share borders, they share boundaries together. All right, and if by any way Ukraine undertakes an action that would jeopardize Russia's national security, it's very natural for Russia to want to step into that, you know, affair. All right, so I think given their relationship, Russia, it is just very natural for Russia to want to interfere in Ukraine. Given their history together, their geographic location, these guys share boundaries together, and whether you believe it or not, anything that Ukraine does, there are some cases that there are some decisions that Ukraine cannot take because it would mean jeopardizing Russia's interest, especially the NATO, giving the NATO stance, Ukraine wanting to join NATO and all of that. And so that's why you see that it's more like Russia interfering in Ukraine matters once in a while. But if there is anyone who should not be interfering in matters of Ukraine, it should be the US. Yes, it should be the United States because look at the location of the US. It is in faraway west, across the other side of the ocean, and it has absolutely no threat to its territory whatsoever. So it has no businesses being in Ukraine. Do you understand? If there is anyone who should stay away from Ukraine, he should stop interfering with Ukraine. It has to be the United States. Do you understand? And come to think of it, as far as whether we agree with this point or not, democracy or rather sovereignty or independence for Ukraine, it's more like a dream that is not exactly feasible, especially not now, given that the United States and Russia are in the picture. All right. Let me even ask you a question. Assuming Russia leaves Ukraine alone and stops meddling in Ukraine's destiny as we think that they should do you really think in your heart of hearts that US will stop meddling in Ukraine's affair? Did you really think that? So you see, as far as Russia and the United States are concerned, there is really no true independence for Ukraine. All right, independence for Ukraine right now, as far as Russia and the US are in the picture, is more like the concept of peace. It is relative. Do you understand? Because whether you like it or not, Ukraine, as it is right now, will have to either directly or indirectly be subject to either Russia or the US. All right, so where is the true independence? Where? And secondly, I came across a post on Facebook. I see a lot of people, because of the refugee crisis that has emerged from this Russian Ukrainian crisis, and a lot of people, like there are some Nigerians who are stuck in Ukraine, and some of them that have taken refuge in other countries are being discriminated upon, and they are not allowed into some of those neighboring countries for for shelter and and security, refuge, and all of that. And then they termed it as an act of racism. Now, I'd like to correct that impression. Any country that is choosing who to allow in its territory because of this, refugee problem arising from the US and Ukrainian crisis should not be blamed. If a country decides, okay, I'm not taking this number of people, I'm done taking this number of people, or I'm not accepting this person or accepting this person, you can't really blame them. You know why? The refugee problem has a very huge impact on the host country. Sometimes it could be economical impact, sometimes it could be social impact. All right. Now, we are talking about people in their thousands. On the recent report, it has moved from it was usually 4 to 500,000 people, but now they are up to 1.5 million refugees fleeing to different countries from Ukraine in search of safety and shelter and all of that. And of course, Nigerians in Ukraine are part of those people who are seeking for refuge. And some of these countries, as people claim, are discriminating against Nigerians. It has little or nothing to do with racism. Impact with refugee problem is enormous. The responsibilities are many. All right, it's going to tell on the population. It's going to exert pressure on infrastructures, medical facilities, education, and all around. Okay, and these countries have made budgets for the year. Probably nobody foresaw this. They didn't know it was going to turn out this way, and then no neighboring country made plans for this million of people from Ukraine or from wherever in the world. So it means that the more people accepting people into their country means more people, and more people means more food, more shelter. It means more pressure on social amenities and infrastructures, on education, on medical facilities, and all of that. And in a worse case scenario, diseases. All right, you don't know these millions of people you're bringing into your domain. You don't know what they've been exposed to. You don't know what kind of the state of their health. It could act also as a means of spreading diseases in the country, in the host country. Do you understand? And also, in a very worst case scenario, some of those refugees begin to like settle down. They start to procreate, over time, and sometimes they could even lead. It could even lead to them struggling for, properties with indigents of the place. It is the reason why in Nigeria we have some class of people who would rather kill a human being just to secure a piece of land for grazing and all of that. So these are some of the challenges of welcoming refugees to a host country. So it's not always the case of racism. It is capacity. I mean, if you see a nation who is receiving and welcoming some of those refugees in their country, I mean, it is commendable. And if they decide, okay, we are not taking these people, or this is the limit to the number of people we can accept in our country, I mean, they should also not to be blamed. They are also not to be blamed. They are also not to be blamed because the responsibility that come with attending to refugees in war-torn situation is always enormous, and that is why you see nations would rather do what they have to do to make sure that conflict does not escalate to that point where you have refugees from all over. That is why you will see Nigeria going to Mali for peacekeeping, even though we don't have much of peace in the country. All right, so it is cheaper for a nation or a neighboring country to step into the next neighboring country and settle conflict than to allow that conflict to escalate and then result to refugee situation, because at the end of the day it is this country that will still suffer it. It is neighboring countries of the conflicting region that will suffer it, the influx of refugees from all over the place and all that. So I really want us to understand that this has nothing to do with they are Nigerians or it is racism. It has little or nothing to do with racism. And if we see a country that has placed, a limit to the number of refugees that can accept at time, you really should not blame them. In fact, if you're looking for whom to blame, you should blame the Nigerian government, who has probably not been able to do much in lifting or evacuating its citizens. We owe our citizens that much. All right. In every wartime situation, countries do what they can to bring out their citizens who are in that country. All right. Bring them home to safety and all of that. So if a government fails to do so, the government of such people should be blamed, not the neighboring countries. Besides, the countries, they're not Santa Claus, they're not Father Christmas. They are not Father Christmas, all right? So you can't blame them if they set a limit to the number of people they can take, or they set a limit to the kind of people they want to accept into their country. All right, you shouldn't blame them. And when they do accept people into their country, welcome these refugees to their country, I think that they should be commended rather than blamed. All right, and that brings us to the end of this very short video. On our next video, I will be talking about one very weird reason why I broke up with a good man. I'm sure you want to hear that, just don't you? So stay tuned and watch out for the next video. All right. Still your girl Ujoka Abikuru, aka Udella Talks. Until next time on our next video. See you. Bye for now.